déjà, quand je pense fleuve, je pense à de l'eau qui va se jeter dans la mer ou dans l'océan. C'est la première chose. Et je pense à un gros fleuve et à un delta, je vois ça. Et un fleuve, c'est aussi les êtres humains autour du fleuve, puisqu'il n'y a pas de ville sans point d'eau. En fait, il y a Saint-Exupéry qui disait que l'eau n'est pas nécessaire à la vie, l'eau est la vie. Donc un fleuve, c'est de la vie, à condition que bien sûr il y ait toute la faune et la flore adaptées, et surtout des êtres humains autour de ce fleuve.
River is, if you call it technically, it is the flow of water getting collected and taken. But yes, it is not only that water, but it is, I would say, a feeder of many things to many people who stay along the path of the river. Because when the water comes development, many issues, food, many things, livelihood, which comes from the river itself.
River basically, what I would like to say is the flow of water. Continuous flow of water from a particular glacier. Then it connects so many intermediate discharges in between and finally take shape of a river in the downstream. That is basically a river. And when a river emerges, it may have a discharge of 3 to 4 cubic feet per second. And when it reaches in the downstream, it may have a discharge of 1500 cubic meters per second. So, when the river flows, when the stream flows from the origin, it gradually meets with so many intermediate perennial discharges, and ultimately takes the shape of the river and has a very large volume when it reaches in the downstream.
Alors pour moi, un fleuve, c'est un filet d'eau qui s'écoule dans lequel se sont greffées les réalités historiques et qui ont un déterminisme économique et social du temps.
A river is an ecosystem of flowing water. It is a landscape entity which has one dimension much longer than the other dimensions, and it performs certain natural functions. The first of which is to transport water and sediments from its catchment to the sea. The second is that it does land shaping. The third is it supports various life forms on its own bed and on its banks and in its floodplains. Okay. And the fourth is that it purifies itself. These are four basic natural functions that a river performs. And it must always be maintained in a condition where it can perform these four functions. That is the minimum we owe to a river. Okay?
Look, a river to me is something which flows, which has a flow, and the water in that is flowing, and it supports life of both animals and plants and people, and it brings benefits to people and promotes well-being of people.
I would say a river is a story, and the river is a story brought to you by the divine. That would be my definition.
My definition of a river is a lot of clean flowing water with plenty of wildlife in it.
A river is a free-flowing, body of water, which should be adequate enough to support the biotic as well as abiotic environment. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen in India.
River means water, flowing water. So the first thing about river comes to my mind is flowing water, and then water, it should be of good quality. So clean flowing water, and water is one of the vital elements of life, which is without which we cannot imagine life. So it's life also. It gives us life, it sustains life, and which is vital for life and a vital part of nature. So a free flowing clean water, that is what I mean by a river.
My definition of a river is promotion and protection of civilization.
A river is that it's a natural ecosystem which needs to be preserved. It needs to be maintained as a natural, natural system, in a way, and both morphologically as well as ecologically. So both are important. They're two important, parts which needs to be maintained and preserved in a river system. That's basically my definition.
Rivers are the lifeline and basis for the development of civilization. In all parts of the world, you might have seen that civilization has been developed on the bank of rivers. And it is simply because the river water is used for the drinking, bathing, industrial and other purposes. Mostly, if there is no river, then you will not get any life. Why? Because there is no water. And not only this water, rivers are not only the source of surface water, they are also the source of groundwater, because in remote areas, water is made available through the extraction from the ground, and major source for recharging of the groundwater are the rivers. So thus you will find that all the rivers, they are the major source of drinking water supply, bathing water supply, industrial water supply. A huge quantum of water is there in the sea, but due to its high salinity, it is not useful. So river water is normally used for all these purposes.
My definition of the river is very simple, one word: life.
River is a source of life for every live beings of this planet.
If you say river in Hindu mythological perspective and ask this question to a traditional follower of Hinduism, then river is a liquid energy from the Almighty God, coming to the human realm in terms of flow to create life. Then the second part of this will be, if you say Ganga, then that liquid again given more religious power, that is the mother spirit linking the two force, male force, female force, and that make the life, and that's why that to be always respected and remembered. No Ganga, no life.
ঠিক আছে তোমার এখান থেকে খেয়াঘাটের লোক শুনতে পাচ্ছে হ্যাঁ তাহলে
আমার নিতাই পদে ভরসা থাকা চাই গো আমার এই সময়ের পদে ভরসা
It is a lifeline. It is a lifeline, and it's our support, life support system.
Basically, to me, river is the lifeline of humanity. So all life forms that develop in and around river, and primitive form of life that was nurtured in water only. So river means it's a life for us.
To me, a river is flowing water that connects places, people, ecosystems. Yeah. So to me, that's river.
River is a flow, not only of water, but also of everything that is connected to water and to the people that live close to the river, the flow. Yep.
The river is the refer to water flow. And people can take benefit from the river. I mean, the people can live with rivers, because in our Khmer proverb said that when we have water, we have fish, and we have fish, then we have life. So water, fish, and life are associated. Otherwise, a lot of people living along Mekong River. You see, the most of population on the Mekong River, settlement of the house. You will see the people living along the Mekong, like in Kampong Cham, canal, crotches are a lot of dominant of the high population density, especially in canal and Kampung Chang.
For life, not only for human being but also for the animal and tree.
Rivers is very important for the people and also for the biodiversity. The people or the human cannot live without wetland, cannot live without rivers. That is my opinion. And the biodiversity also, the rich biodiversity is also within the wetland, even though in the coastal area.
For me, I think river is life, because river is life. It means that river provide food, river provide water for drinking, river provide water for bathing, river provide for agriculture. So river is life, it's soft for livelihood, and I can say in short, river is life.
La définition, on va dire, géographique. Un fleuve, c'est un cours d'eau qui se jette dans la mer. Voilà.
My personal definition of rivers, river is rivers is a lake we consists a lot of water for all the biodiversity to live, and case to Tendesab River is we can say is the most important river. We could save many Cameroonian people to help them to make their living with rich natural resources from the lake. So for me, river is a place where all the biodiversity living, and not only biodiversity, for everybody, for even for people as well who live on the river to make a living.
Okay, ខ្ញុំសូមអនុញ្ញាតជម្រាបជូននៅទាក់ទងនឹងស្ទឹងបាទស្ទឹងគឺជាផ្នែកមួយនៃទន្លេដែលភ្ជាប់ប្រភពទឹកពីភ្នំចូលមកនៅតំបន់ដែលមានទីតាំងធំមកជាពិសេសនៅប្រទេសកម្ពុជាយើងគឺជាដៃរបស់ដែលទឹកអាចនាំទឹកពីតំបន់ភ្នំមកចូលបឹងទន្លេសាបហើយវាមានទូរនទីក្នុងការផ្ដល់នៅមធ្យោបាយដូចជាកន្លែងដែលសម្រាប់កំណត់ធ្វើមធ្យោបាយធ្វើដំណើរក៏ដូចជាសម្រាប់ប្រជាពលរដ្ឋនេសាទក៏ដូចជាផ្ដល់នៅប្រភពទឹកយ៉ាងសំខាន់សម្រាប់កសិកម្មហើយជាដើមហ្នឹងបាទអញ្ចឹងមានន័យថាទន្លេវាគឺជាប្រភពដែលនាំទឹកពីភ្នំមកចូលក្នុងទន្លេសាបឬក៏សមុទ្រនឹងសម្រាប់នៅប្រទេសកម្ពុជាអរគុណសម្រាប់ការចង់ដឹងចង់ឮនេះបាទ
ចាសួស្តីសូមអរគុណដល់សំណួរដែលបានសួរខ្ញុំហ្នឹងខ្ញុំគិតថាទន្លេគឺជាផ្នែកមួយដែលនាំឲ្យយើងនឹងបានរស់នៅដែរបានល្អប្រសើរដែរក្នុងការប្រើប្រាស់ទឹកហ្នឹងហើយទន្លេក៏ជាផ្នែកមួយនៃប្រភពនៃត្រីដែរដែលធ្វើឲ្យត្រីគាត់រស់នៅបានល្អប្រសើរនិង
définition personnelle, c'est, je pense que simplement une rivière ou un fleuve, c'est une des plus belles choses du monde. Parce que c'est libre, ça traverse les pays sans autorisation, ça lie les gens, ça lie la nature. Et c'est juste magnifique à regarder.
Un fleuve, c'est quoi? Un fleuve, c'est une source de vie, un fleuve, c'est une source d'énergie, un fleuve, c'est une source de joie, c'est une source d'espoir. Un fleuve, c'est beaucoup de choses et au moins ça.
Alors, ma définition d'une rivière, je dirais que d'abord c'est une ressource du fait de l'eau qui circule et de tous les éléments qui sont liés à cette ressource que représente la rivière. La définition d'un fleuve, c'est simplement une rivière qui se jette dans une mer, donc c'est pas fondamentalement différent. Et pour être complémentaire, c'est que comme souvent la ressource que représente une rivière est associée à des risques et que donc l'intégration, l'utilisation par une société de ce que représente une rivière doit intégrer ces deux facettes, un peu à la Janus, d'un côté pile et d'un côté face, liées à la rivière.
My definition of a river, I mean, I couldn't give you a precise figure. It would have to be, it's to do with the size. I mean, if it's too small, then it would only be a stream. So if you're then looking at a river as being somewhat larger than a stream, I mean, we've done a lot of work actually with classifying the river, the Mekong and its tributaries. The Mekong is obviously a river, and some of its major tributaries are obviously rivers in their own right. But then you get to a point when it's just a small stream, and you have to say, no, that's a stream or a river. I mean, there must probably be an official line between stream and river, but I don't know what it is.
Some people, the river means a lot more than that. So it depends on where you are, your life situation. I don't depend personally on the river, but there are people, and in our program we meet these people in our work. There are people who live and die with the river, on the river and in the river. To them, the river means everything. It's a source of food, it's a sort of source of transport. It's the only place they can live because it's typically poor people who live on the margins of the river. They don't have access to land, they don't have access to other means of growing vegetables other than the riverbanks in the dry season. So for them, the river is their life. But to people in big cities, rivers sometimes means hazards. They see their houses and properties flooded because of heavy rains and because of inadequate management of river systems. So the river, the meaning of the river depends on the people you ask.
To me, river is the source of life.
河流是人类文明的摇篮。
是我们的生命之源，孕育了我们，但是我们必须依赖它，我们也在伤害它。
我们地球相当于血管对我们人类。
河流给我们的生活提供了很多必需品。我觉得河流 它给我们的生活带来了很多的便利，也给我们提供了很多必须的品，但是我们却往往在不经意间没有意识到，我们就在慢慢的伤害它。
我认为河流是有生命的，就像我们人类一样，它自身也是有生命的。但是我们现在很多人认为它只是一个工具，没有意识到它也是有喜怒哀乐，它也有它自己的一些生存的需求，这个是需要我们转变这种意识的。
就是河流是一切我觉得生命可能都来源于水，然后就是文明确实都是人民自古都是沿河而居，然后是文明的摇篮。现在恒河，我觉得人类的各种对河流的各种需求在恒河体现的比较明显吧。然后但是明显恒河也被受到了伤害，然后我们不应该重走那些老路，我们应该从现在开始要好好的保护我们的这个生命资源。
First of all, when I think of what is a river, I think of the natural world, and that this is a very ancient formation on the planet, much older than, say, the Great Lakes, and that it's sort of always been with us. You know, this main artery, and that it's part of our culture, it's part of our identity as who we are as people, and that it has various aspects to it. It has a transportation navigation aspect, it has an environmental aspect, it has a occupational aspect, workforce, the fisheries industry and so forth. It has a cultural aspect. A lot of our music comes from, the attachment to the river, the emotional attachment to the river. So it has this very strong cultural, almost innate appeal as helping us to define who we are as humans.
To me, a river is a continuous flowing body of water on the surface of the planet that persists even when there's not any rain for an extended period of time. So it's a feature of the land, it flows and it supports the life in the area through which it flows. A river is a live flowing body of water.
My definition of a river is a pathway for water to bring new life and new cultures to other areas. River is a multi-use body of water that animals use, that our cultures use, that humans use for recreation and transportation.
My definition of a river would be the point where the watershed collects the water and drains it, but also the heart of the ecosystem.
A river, to me, a river it collects water both on land and within the groundwater, and channels it, carries it further downstream to the ocean. And it involves a lot of ecosystems and a whole lot of other things as part of that.
For me, a river is like a major artery in our bodies. It flows through the landscape, it nurtures, it creates all sorts of interesting possibilities, and it's ultimately, we cannot survive unless that artery is healthy and vibrant and keeps moving and gets stronger.
So you want to know, what is a river? A river is the flowing water blood of the continent. It is the visible part of the water system that we all live on. It's a part that we can understand and care a lot about. So it's our gateway to understand the water that keeps us alive.
I am Carol Zoff, and I live in St. Paul, Minnesota, on the Mississippi River. And I have the privilege to work for the Minnesota Department of Transportation as a landscape architect, and as such, I am able to be the program manager for the Great River Road, which is a national scenic byway along the Mississippi River. And the Mississippi River runs through 17 miles of St. Paul. In the area that I live, and so I have over the years gotten to know the river much more than I ever would have if I didn't have the honor to work on it specifically. But the river to me is a place that is always something new. There's always a part that is appealing to me. It just is, it's a conduit for history and for nature and for just personal health and relaxing place. I think because it flows, it has a sense of, not quite therapy, but almost therapy. It's very healthy to go to the river. That said, when I work on it, trying to sustain and enhance and protect the river, I see some of the threats that occur. So to it being a successful, sustainable, improving type of physical environment landscape. So I'm always in the back of my mind as a professional kind of worried about this, that, and the other issue. But living on the river as a person, I feel is really a huge personal benefit to me. And I feel a part of a bigger global thing too, because the Mississippi is huge. And so I like that aspect of it too, that it actually connects me globally, both environmentally and from a cultural standpoint.
My name is Bob Powell. I live in St. Paul, Minnesota, very near the Mississippi River. And the river is fascinating to me because there are so many things that people use the river for. There can be barges full of gravel. There can be pleasure boats with people enjoying a holiday. There are trails along the river, and it's always changing. The landscape is always changing. The river might be high, the river might be low, but it's always different and always fascinating. It's fun to go through the locks in a boat and drop the many feet that the locks, provide transit for, and just it's very pleasant, very peaceful just to sit along the river and watch things happening. So, a fun place.
A river is a waterway that drains the watershed that everybody lives in. So in different parts of the globe, in different parts of the country here, we have a landscape, and all that the water which falls in that area flows into the river. And the river carries that water downstream. So any drainage system that drains the water from a watershed is defined as a river. And the river gets bigger and bigger as the smaller rivers join together and becomes a bigger river, and just like you see on the Mississippi.
Yeah, I will agree with Mike. The river is the one who drains, but it also, as we talked about it, it drains water, sediment, nutrient, anything that we dump on the watershed, which water can carry, taking it down. In different culture, like from where I come from, India, rivers are considered to be mother, equivalent to mother. So you're supposed to treat the river just like you treat your mother which is not done a lot of times. But in different culture, it is treated differently. So that's the river which is, carries the water, nutrient, sediment, and everything, and it generally flows on the lowest topography, or the lowest part of the ground. That's where the river flows.
My name is Rosemary Midgis. I live in Peoria, Illinois. I have always lived along a river, and a river to me means beauty. We have beautiful bluffs here in the area that we can stand on and view the river and view the farmlands across the river.
My name is Craig Mitkiss. I am the Illinois chairman for the Mississippi River Parkway Commission. And what a river means to me is many things. It means, just like my wife, we both have always lived along a river. We enjoy the experience of going down along the river. We enjoy the seasonal change of the river. We enjoy the recreational as well as the business aspects. Here in Peoria, a lot of it is the barge traffic, and we enjoy watching that. We enjoy the scenic beauty, and then basically all aspects. We've lived in our area here in Peoria, Illinois since 1985, and we've seen locally a change in the people's view of the river. Before it was looked at as a dumping grounds and where businesses were placed and wasn't considered an asset, whereas that is now changing, where we're trying to get more people to get down and experience and enjoy the river.
Naturally flowing waterway, carrying water from an area of higher land to lower land.
the river is everything. It's home. I've never left the river. I was born on the river in 1963, and I've never left this river. I've been on it all my life, so it's home. It's industry, it's economics, it's recreation, and yet it is danger. So anything you can think of, from my perspective, that is what the river is. The Mississippi River, named by the Indians, represents the father of waters. So here in the continental USA, the river is everything. The Continental Divide, the major transportation hub, the waterway, the supplier of life itself, and that is remote, that is satin in, it also takes. But it is a piece of God's creation.
I guess from my perspective, a river, of course, is basically drains a watershed where rainfall and runoff occurs. But it's really much more than that in terms that it also tends to define the character of the area that it runs through, both in the type of forestry or the type of environment that it creates. It can be a very, this is probably long-winded, but it can be a very dangerous when it floods, but it also brings a lot of opportunity, not just for the environment, but for the people who live and work in that area.
A river is many things to many people. It is a physical structure that conveys water from one place to another as a result of the topography around it. It is a lifeline or a livelihood for others who work with the navigation industry and move people and products up and down the waterways. It is a recreation area for individuals to do all kinds of different things in and around the river. And it is a habitat. It is a place things live. And the variety of different organisms that are in that river and call that home, so that makes it home to them. I think that's what I would call a river.
It's a quote by T.S. Eliot that says, "I do not know much about gods, but I think that the river is a strong brown god, sullen, untamed, and intractable."
Okay, to me, the river is life, and everything that exists on the earth is connected by the river. We're all connected by the river, and it's the lifeblood of Mother Earth. It's the veins that take away the waste, but also give the nutrients and continue this incredible cycle of life.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much agree with John. I mean, everything living has to have water to survive, and so rivers give us water, give us the animals and the migratory birds and all that. So it's full of life, full of fish. It's just like you said, it's life.
Well, the Mississippi River is the only river that I'm truly acquainted with, and I grew up beside the Mississippi River, and its watershed actually covers 33 states in the United States, which is huge. But it is a source of drinking water. It's a source of economic development. of culture, food, music. It's is the creation of a culture here in Memphis that would not have existed without the river, particularly the Mississippi River. And we love it, and it's a source of great pride for us. So the river is sort of symbolic for me personally, of life and the ever-growing currents that go up and down the river, and the people that go up and down the river. It's like life, and we're all like passing boats on the river, and sometimes we stop, and sometimes we don't.
My name is Karen Thornton, and I work with the Mississippi River Corridor. My job is public outreach, so I would say I hate to piggyback from what Diana said, but Diana said, it's life. But to me, it's a new beginning. It's a beginning, because I've learned a lot as far as the culture and the history and things of that nature, and I'm teaching my daughter about it. And unfortunately, of course, you learn about the Civil War, but they don't teach you as far as the importance of what the river actually, how important the significance of it, as far as the commerce, and as far as how it was a particular gateway for the slaves to gain their freedoms and things like that. And so I look forward to just, having the young children understand that part. So I would say that the Mississippi is a great start to because of the vast examples, and the stories, to put those stories real, to make them real and have kids understand it. It's just not about some guy in a fur hat. It came over from France or Spain or something. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's a beginning, so we can have kids be able to develop their own history, to forge their path from that. So it's going to be very important for us to educate kids as far as let them know different kinds of jobs that you can particularly have, whether it's in environmental justice or engineering and things of that nature. So to me, the Mississippi is a new beginning for an old start.
Well, the river that I live by and love is the Mississippi River, and particularly in Memphis, the Memphis riverfront, and it is where the water from the mountains flow through Memphis. The water from the north part of the U.S. flows through Memphis, and it rises and falls. It's dynamic, it's alive, and it's life.
What does the Mississippi River mean to me? It means an incredible reflection of the past. It means a solid foundation for the present. And it also shows a perspective of the opportunity that lies before us in the future, because it is so much a part of our human fabric, of the people of the Delta region, and we're so connected to it because of its impact on our economy, its impact on our culture, our history, and the enormous opportunity that it could provide for us for the jobs of the future. And that's why it's important that we continue to embrace it, to love it, to protect it, to preserve it, and to develop it to its full potential for the betterment of all of our people. And that water that runs through the river is like the blood that runs through our veins as a people and as an economy. That's what the river means to me.
A river is a living system defined by water as it flows through geography.
The river to me is the lifeblood of the land. Water is life. It's the artery. It's the blood vessel for the body, for the landscape, for planet Earth. In terms of the Colorado River, it's the heart of the environment. It's where the animals gather, it's where the birds gather, it's where people gravitate. That's not so much a physical description as a metaphor. In terms of a physical description, water runs downhill, it collects, and it ultimately flows to the sea. And the Colorado River, to me, you observe that more than maybe anywhere else because it's dry, 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 dry. And the water collects there and flows to the sea.
Je m'appelle Christophe Poulet, je travaille à Denver, Colorado pour le ministre de la Santé et le ministre de l'Environnement. Et pour moi, une fleuve, c'est non seulement une source d'eau, mais aussi un couloir dans une ville où on peut faire beaucoup de choses, la récréation, quand il fait chaud, on peut marcher, on peut faire du vélo et voir la nature en fait. Donc c'est beaucoup plus que juste une source d'eau, c'est un couloir qui permet aux gens d'aller dans la nature et voir les animaux, voir la nature. Voilà.
A river is a living water body that's moving, downstream, and it's got, fish and a healthy river has fish and wildlife and.
So I'm gonna use a quote from Barry Lopez, who's an environmental author, and he said that when you put your hands in a river, you feel the cords that bind the earth together. And that's how I think about rivers, is those linkages between us all.
A river is life.
My definition of a river would be any flowing body of water that has probably over a certain flow. I would distinguish that from a stream or a creek. So a river in my mind has a much larger flow than a stream or a creek. And it's a flowing body of water starting at some location and ending in usually another river or the ocean.
To me, a river is a lifeline. I think that's my definition.
I grew up on the Brazos River in Texas, which is where I learned how to fish and to swim. And so, for me, the river was the place you go for fun, for food. It's the source of life. It was sort of the beginning of everything was the river. And for me, much of what I learned was at the river.
also grew up along a river, and it was a source of fun and escape from the norm. And to me, I guess a river means peace. It's very calming to be around water, and anytime I'm outside, I would prefer to be by a river because it's very peaceful to me.
So a river is the means that water is collected from lands and carried on to other places, and that river provides life and well-being for the area through which it passes. Rivers are essential to our life and well-being, and they're very good to have.
A river is a body of water that flows through a country that often connects communities.
I'm just going to follow up with what he said, but not only is a river a body of water that often connects communities, but a river also shows the symptoms of what's happening in society. If a society is healthy, the river can be healthy. If the society is in conflict, oftentimes the river is not healthy.
What is a river? I guess my answer would be that a river is a lifeline of water that flows from a higher elevation to a lower elevation. It connects the mountains to the sea, and it's a lifeblood for the land that it runs through. That's what a river is to me. It's the lifeblood.
I think of a river as the water accumulating from the mountains in a valley, and that water flowing downstream and supporting life in and around the river.
I'm just going to say a river is water in motion.
I think a river is the lifeblood of a community and of an ecosystem. It is life, is how I think of it.
River is life.
To me, a river is a natural part of the Earth's systems that is necessary for life and provides benefits for all species on the planet. And it's also very beautiful to look at.
To me, a river is the lifeblood of the community and the environment.
Yes, well, in Arizona, a river takes on a new definition because many of our rivers are dry. So you can see where water flowed at one time or still flows from time to time periodically. But in our state, a river is something that is seen from underground. You know, it's the hydrology under the surface that you would be able to use to identify where the rivers are located.
What is a river? Well, being an engineer, so I can think of we could have a Mother Nature natural river or a man-made river, which the CEP Canal is almost like a man-made river. It's I look at it as as a natural river, usually comprised of a drainage area where you have rainfall runoff, snow melt. It collects, and it's a flowing body of water. It's not a lake or a reservoir or a man-made structure, but a river is something that's the water is flowing, and its destination is either going to be for human purposes as it flows down to the mouth, but usually you have the source, and usually the river ends somewhere. Mouth usually it's at the ocean or discharges into another body of water, another lake or another river, that kind of thing. So.
Oh, I'm Andrea Carlson, an analyst at Central Arizona Project. I guess to me, my definition of a river would be a water body with a flow that's greater than probably the mean flow of all streams in that state. So it would be representative, a water body with a larger than average flow given a similar geographic location.
My name is Mohammed Mahmoud. My definition of a river is a water body that flows from one location to the other. It starts somewhere and it ends somewhere, usually from a mountain or a snow melt, and it ends maybe at the ocean.
I'm Colorado River Programs Manager for the Central Arizona Project. My definition of a river is a stream of water flowing that connects resources and communities.
Well, I think a river is, it represents the area because it's a culmination of the water from the watershed around it, and it's a concentration of life, and especially if you're in an arid place like I am. I mean, so much of life is associated with that river. If you get up onto the mountains, and you can see, like, you can see the watershed, and you can see how each little wash brings the water down, and the river itself will be like this, like this green ribbon of life through, a more beige landscape. So, it's I think rivers represent what's going on, and in the land, the good and the bad. The pollution that from the lands often ends up in the rivers. If we're caring for the land, it'll be reflected in the rivers, and they're pretty important. That's a long answer, isn't it?
Well, at one level, it's very simple. A river is an area of land where water flows down to and collects and then moves by the force of gravity downstream. It will move from one river to another as it goes downstream, eventually hitting the ocean. And there, Mother Nature will evaporate a lot of it up and into the sky, carry the moisture back over land where it will precipitate out as rain or snow, and the hydrologic cycle completes itself. So in one way, it's just part of the hydrologic cycle, and it's a physical fact of our landscape. But for me, a river is the recycle and rebirth of what we all are as a species. And if you don't take care of your rivers, you're not taking care of your soul.
Okay, this is Francisco Zamora. So for me, a river it means water, it means life, it means water flowing, and I can connect with when I was a kid. Really, rivers were part of my life because I used to go there with my dad, to fishing and camping. So a river, it's water, but now it also has a new meaning because here in southern Arizona and northwestern Mexico, some rivers don't have water, and I have been able, I have a different perspective now of a river, that is, it's an opportunity to keep connected with nature. It's an opportunity to feel alive, feel like you're making a contribution, because of many rivers don't have water. So, because a river doesn't have water, it doesn't mean that it's not important. It just means that it needs our help.
Hi, this is Fatima Luna from Sonoran Institute, and for me, a river is a gift from Mother Nature that just gives lives to humans, the environment, but also a lot of species.
How I characterize a river, and I've said this a lot when I do public speaking, is a river is basically a lifeline to provide water, to an area. A river provides the water, the quality of life, the essential lifeblood to an area for communities and life to exist in that area. If it wasn't for water, you wouldn't be able to have homes there, farming there, habitat or ecosystems there. So water is such an integral resource to life. I consider water basically the lifeblood and an integral ingredient for life to exist in any particular geographical area, if that makes sense. So.
Mi nombre es Edith Santiago Serrano, trabajo en el Sonoran Institute en el programa del Delta del Río Colorado. Soy coordinadora operativa del programa y para mí un río es una fuente de vida aquí en el Delta, es una fuente de mucha fauna, de mucha vegetación, que es la visión que tenemos para la zona, para el río Colorado aquí en el Delta. Entonces queremos que mucha gente se una a esta visión de que el río es una fuente de vida y volverlo eso, una fuente de vida mayor.
My personal definition of a river is a body of water that made itself from floodwaters from higher elevations to lower elevations without the assistance of man, because they were all formed before man, and they were used and settled upon by men. And a river is a river because it runs downhill and takes the path of least resistance, and it forms itself without the help of man. That's a river.
So my name is Jeff Keitlinger. I am the General Manager of the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California. We are the largest provider of drinking water in the world. So we deliver water to all of Southern California. That includes Los Angeles, San Diego, and Orange County, and Disneyland, and other places you may have heard of. Question is, what is a river? I think of a river as nature's way of delivering fresh water, and fresh water is life, so rivers are life.
A river for me is life, because the river is where you have the clean water. I mean, a healthy river with a good watershed management means everything even to cities or communities or any animal, because it's where you produce clean water, and it's very important to have them managed and in a sustainable way, so you can maintain water for life.
Eu sou o Carlos Durigan, diretor executivo da WCS Brasil, Wildlife Conservation Society. O que é um rio? Para mim, um rio simboliza uma fonte de água, né? Uma água que tem um curso, é uma água que segue o seu curso, e ele não representa somente a calha principal de um grande rio, mas toda a sua bacia, todas as fontes que formam aquela bacia hidrográfica. Então um rio, né, ou vários rios formam essa bacia hidrográfica, e isso é interessante porque a gente acaba vendo que um rio não é somente uma fonte, são muitas, né? E quando elas se juntam, ela forma um outro rio, né, até o seu final, até o mar. Então, em termos gerais, para mim o rio é isso, é uma fonte de água que segue seu curso e que termina ou em outro rio, ou em um lago, ou no mar.
Tá, meu nome é Will de Itaboraí, sou geógrafo do Instituto Socioambiental no Brasil, na Amazônia. E para a gente que trabalha com o rio para a gente, aqui que não tem estrada, né? O rio é o nosso meio de transporte, é o lugar onde a gente tira o alimento, né? A pesca, os peixes que a gente come, é o lugar onde os outros animais também tiram seus alimentos, sejam os peixes, as frutas que caem nos rios, os outros bichos que vivem nos rios, que não são somente os peixes. Aqui tem uma frase também muito conhecida, que é: o rio comanda a vida, né? Para onde a gente vai tem a velocidade de subir o rio, é uma velocidade, descer o rio é outra velocidade. Então, quando o rio enche durante 6 meses, e durante 6 meses ele seca, fica bem baixo. Então, a dinâmica do rio comanda muito do nosso dia a dia, que conforme o rio está cheio, conforme o rio está vazio, tanto para a gente pescar quanto para a gente se divertir, na hora de nadar, na hora de andar de barco, na hora de fazer outras coisas, o rio comanda uma parte muito grande do nosso cotidiano.
Je suis João Meireles, like Jean, comme Jean, et je vis à Belém, à la bouche de l'Amazone, et je crois que la rivière, c'est l'histoire en mouvement.
Had to harken back to New Orleans, back when you dated that drama queen, to remember the last time that I saw your face. We exchanged some words and hit the road, neither us a single place to go. A friendship in the tank for 2 weeks, and we grew up on the wrong side of the river, and our childhood has gone on for way too long. And in time, I know we'll find it. We've been stuck across the river for way too long. the wheels to make it shine. We drove that thing right into the ground. That's back when gas was a little thing, didn't cost as much as a diamond ring, like the one I used to marry your ex-wife. We grew up on the wrong side of the river, and our childhood has gone on for way too long. And in time, I know we'll find it. We've been stuck across the river for way too long. And my life is golden. You've been living in this county for too long. I've always knew you were a mess, and now you're second best. And I'm not the one afraid to be alone. We grew up on the wrong side of the river. Yeah.